Today on Robb's Garage, we're installing a new valve cover on the R56 Mini Cooper S. So I recently had a check engine light come on the car. I noticed that there was some oil spewing out of the exhaust. It appears that we have a PCV valve stuck open. The PCV valve is integrated as part of the valve cover itself. So you can't just replace a PCV valve, you have to replace the entire valve cover. This particular model is a N18 B16, but there are other motors for the R56. So when you order yourself a new valve cover, you've got to make sure it's the correct one for your particular engine. This valve cover I bought from Rock Auto. It's a Beck Arnley, has a new oil filler cap, comes with new bolts, as well as the valve cover gasket already molded in. What we're going to do is start by taking the ignition coil packs out, like so. Just disconnect those. Make sure you keep these in the same order, just in case. Take a little screwdriver, carefully pry this out. Squeeze this pipe off. Now for these electrical connectors, I'm going to take a flathead screwdriver, just push up slightly in order to pull off. Make sure you remember the orientation for these connectors so you don't get them mixed up later. So again, push up slightly, slide off. Over here, pry that off a bit, slide that out. So there. Now we have all of our wires disconnected. And with that, we'll proceed to unscrew these bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've lost count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10. They all take a 10 millimeter socket. Loosen them first. Did notice back in here on this last bolt there's like a ground wire of some sort that it's going to take an 8 millimeter socket to take that wire off. Let's see here. What is that thing? Got it. It's 10 mil, but you're going to need a deep socket, 10 millimeter. That should do it. Just when I thought I had everything removed to pull the valve cover out, I start lifting it. I'm realizing it's not coming loose. I noticed, you idiot, there's 2 more bolts. They're right in between the tubes for the spark plugs. That brings our total, I believe, to 12. Once those are out, hey, look at that. We have one more wire connector back here. Just a bracket. Take that flathead screwdriver and kind of pry it off. There we go. Okay. Make sure not to get anything in the valve train. Voila. Now we're going to clean up the surface here. Make sure there's no debris and it's nice and smooth. No oil left. You can see here there was a little bit of RTV used the last time this valve cover was replaced. I'm assuming that's not the OEM. So we'll probably have to scrape that off with the gasket scraper. Be very gentle not to ruin the metal surface. And likewise, it looks like back here there was a little RTV as well. And I think that's because they're prone to not seal very good on these corners where it curves up. So we'll be sure to use some new RTV. Overall, this looks pretty good. The valve train looks good here. Timing chain. Not that I can really inspect it much from up here, but I don't see anything bad. Not even going to use a gasket scraper, just one of these trim panel removers. I think will be fine. Be very careful not to get that silicone into the engine. There you have a little remnant. There. We'll scrape it away from the engine. Just make sure it doesn't get in there. Here we've got our new valve cover. As I was saying earlier, this particular model is for an N18 B16A engine. Probably all the N18s are the same, but you might have a different engine in your R56, and because I've noticed some of the valve covers don't have this little dip in it right here that goes near the timing chain cover. Anyway, just my point being, make sure you order the correct valve cover for your engine. And if you're going to get one that doesn't have the integrated gasket and bolts, make sure you not only replace the gasket and the bolts, but also these gaskets here around the spark plug tubes. Okay, because otherwise you're going to get oil seeping into your spark plugs. Here's the gasket of the RTV I'm going to be using here. It is oil resistant. We're really just going to put it along these edges here where it goes up. Go this side. That should do it. Now we're ready to put the valve cover on. Slide into that hose. Make sure all your wiring looms are out of the way. You're going to start by just hand tightening the bolts just to get them started. Make sure everything lines up correctly. And then there'll be a certain pattern to go through to torque these down. Okay, after they've been hand tightened, you can come back and tighten them with a ratchet. Don't over tighten it, just barely. And I'm going in the pattern that we'll be torquing them down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. 6 back here, 7, 8, 9 up here, 10, almost done, 11, and 12 back here. Those are our 12 bolts. Now let's torque them down, starting with the one back here. It requires the deep socket. You're torquing it to basically 7.5 foot-pounds of torque. I read it's 90 inches, which is 7.5 foot-pounds, if I read the conversion right on the internet. So number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 up here, 10, 11, and 12. All right, next I'm going to reinstall the coil packs, and then we'll do the wiring. So remember to reinstall these in the order that you took them out. It's not super critical, but just to eliminate any potential risk of something weird happening. There's always weird things that happen with cars. So my preference is put them back in the same order. Eliminate the risk of introducing any variables into the repair. And we push these back in, you know, make sure you hear the popping sound. Might be kind of hard to hear on camera there, but you hear a little pop. If your wires are like mine, they kind of have some numbering on them, 1, 2, 3, 4, that helps me know 1, 2, 3, 4, the order they came out in. Don't want to forget about this wire. I keep calling it a ground wire. I assume that's what it is. Make sure you have a magnet tool in your toolbox. You never know when you're going to need it. Now that we've got it started, just tighten that down. Remember, it's 8mm. And don't forget this wire loop here. We're going to have to push it back in that hole. Two things we've got to take off the old valve cover that are used to connect these connectors, sensors of some sort. Knowing what I know now, you probably instead of disconnecting these connectors, you probably could have just removed them from the valve cover first. You know, using these. It's an 8mm socket here, because the whole connector and the sensor there would have just come out with it. So you probably could avoid having to disconnect whatever these sensors are. I don't know if they're measuring oil pressure or oil temperature, something like that. But you know, tighten them by hand, but be careful not to over tighten it. It's just going into plastic. I will say though, it gave me an opportunity to clean off the exterior of the sensors. I'm kind of like, you ever seen the old Saturday Night Live, the anal retentive chef? That's kind of Rob here in Robb's Garage. I have a tendency to clean everything. Sometimes it takes me 4 times longer to do anything. That's why I'm not a professional mechanic. You know, here I am using baby wipes on a engine cover. But anyway, it looks good. Should just go right on there. Let's do this one. Yep. Okay. Pops on. Press fit. Our sensors. Again, make sure you don't mix these up. One more thing I found off the old valve cover that we still need to retain is this bracket here that holds these wires on. Use a screwdriver, pry it off. Not that difficult. Slides on there. Pops on. We should be good to go. Let's start it up and see what happens. I want to check for any leaks. Make sure we don't have oil coming out. So good. Gasket appears to be doing its job correctly. Alright, so it looks good. Let's take it for a test drive. Runs perfect. No more oil coming out of the exhaust. Hope you found this video beneficial. If you did, hit the like button. Do me a favor, subscribe to the channel. You'll be able to follow along more adventures here in Robb's Garage. Another successful repair. There'll be more coming, as well as fun maintenance on the Range Rover Sport. The Corvette and the Ferrari up there are also due for some maintenance, and got some more track days coming up. So see you on down the road.